This is the second part of our OGT calculator tutorial training, and this tutorial part is only going to talk about percent and the percent button. Let me show you where we can find the percent button over here. And if you look right above the 8 key, you'll see the open parentheses. Well, that doesn't work. Red on red. Not so much, right? Okay, so let's do this again. Woo! Okay, right above the percent key, or right above the open parenthesis, you will see the percent key. And notice how it is written on the calculator itself, which means to activate it, you need to hit the second key first. So you're going to hit the second key, and then the open parentheses, which will be your percent button. Okay. Let's go ahead and just try some, and we're going to start just with some straightforward, can you do the actual keystrokes. So in order to do this, we are going to type in the 3, the 5, then you want to hit your second key, and then you want to hit the percent, the parentheses on top. Alright, after you have plugged in each of these keystrokes, 3, 5, and then the second key, percent key, hit equals, you'll notice in your result line you get 0.35. And many of you probably could have done that without the calculator. If you remember 35% to a decimal, you just moved the decimal point over 2 places. But, you know, the percent button is here if you forget or if you're unsure, or just to double check and make sure that you are getting the right answer. It's always worthwhile to know how to use buttons on your calculator. Alright, so go ahead then and let's do 2.5%, and you should get as your answer 0.025. Okay, and if you have any questions as to how the keystrokes to get the 0.025, you'll plug in 2 and then the decimal, the 5, hit your second key, and then activate the percent equals, and you'll get the 0.025. These next two questions are applications of percents because, quite frankly, the OGT is not going to ask you, you know, what's 2.5% as a decimal. That's just going to be the first part of actually applying it. So one method that I really like to use for percent problems is filling in the proportion. Is over of equals percent over 100. If you can fill out that proportion, then you can cross multiply to solve it. What is 60% of 300? So the of is the 300, the 60 is the percent. What you don't know is the is, so we're going to call that the x. So is our x because we don't know what that is. The of number was the 300. The percent is the 60 over 100. And by going through this process, you are going to end up with 3 numbers and 1 unknown. Then you just cross multiply. 100x equals 300 times 60. 100x equals 18, 1, 2, 3 zeros, divide by 100, divide by 100, those 2 sets of zeros cancel out, x equals 180. So 60% of 300 is equal to 180. You could have also done this by using the equation way, where you would need to transfer the 60% into a decimal, or use the percent button, let the calculator do it. But in this one, that method, you need to know that of means multiply. So 60% times 300. And if you just go ahead in your calculator and do that, 60%, remember to use the second key to activate the percent, multiply that by 300, you're going to get 180 also. Okay. For number 4, let's go ahead and do the is over of, percent over 100 again. I do really like this method because I think it's real easy to go ahead and fill in the missing parts. Okay, so 96 is your is. What percent, that's what we don't know, of 256? So our is 96. Of is 256. Equals what percent? We don't know what percent. That's what we're looking for. So the x goes in the percent over 100. Again, cross multiply to solve. Once you get your proportion set up, cross multiply to solve. 256x equals 96 times 100. 256x equals 9600, and then divide both sides by 256, and you'll see x is equal to 37.5, and that's your answer. Okay. Again, percent problems are more application, and let's go ahead and do one more, and this is very similar to an actual OGT question from a little while back. So go ahead and read that. Okay. So you want to buy some shoes and you want to figure out who has the best price on them. Easy enough, right? Looking at these four different things, I see percents and I see fractions. So what you kind of want to do when you're starting a problem like this is decide, do I want to move everything into decimals or do I want to work with everything in fractions? Now I said decimals, but I see percents because that's the whole deal with percents, is that before you work with it in math, you have to change it into a decimal. I personally think decimals are easier to deal with than fractions, so my method is going to be to change all of this stuff and move it into decimal form. Now you'll see I made another column onto this chart here, and what I'm going to fill that chart in with is how much do I have to pay. And then I'm going to make that like pay percentage wise. Okay, so this is going to be in decimals, how much I have to pay for the shoes, and we can then compare it once we fill that out and figure out what the least amount is. So if something is 30% off the original price, how much do I have to pay? And I always like to think of it that way whenever I'm around shopping for something, that it is not how much it is off, but how much do I have to pay? And the way that I like to rationalize that in my head, a little mental math, if you will, if you go and pay full price for something, you are paying 100% for it. If it's 30% off on sale and original price is 100%, then 100% minus 30% that it's on sale means 70%. So I have to pay 70% if I'm buying them at Macy's. Okay, now 70% as a decimal, just so that everything's in decimal form, would be 0.70. So that's my first answer that I'm going to use to compare. Okay, this next one is one that you'll see if you start looking around. A lot of the sales are doing this now. Extra 15% off something that's already reduced by 25%. And I really see this all the time where you have double percents, and it's hard to tell. Do you just add them together and then multiply that, or what is it? And that's not the way that it works. And the correct way to do it is to take the first, let's make sure I'm got the right color here. Take the first reduction and then you're going to multiply by the second reduction. So let's do it the same method that we did before. If something is 25% off, how much am I paying for it? I will pay 100 minus 25. So the first sale leaves us that we are paying 75% of it. So we have 75%. And then it's an extra 15% off. We'll now do that again. 100% minus 15% means that you are paying 85% of that. So you're paying 85% of 75%. So they need to each start at 100%, that's your original price, and then figure out how much off that is. So this is how much it's already reduced. You have to pay 75% of it, and then multiply that by the 0.85%. The 85% is your additional discount. Now remember, the 85 is how much you pay. It's 15% off, which means you're left paying 85% of that. Okay, so go ahead and multiply those two together, and that is going to leave you with the percentage that you actually have to pay. And I'm saying percent, but I'm writing decimals. If I could just get this into my calculator correctly. 0.7 times 0.75 times 0.85 is 0.6375. So what that means is that you are paying 63.75%. So just comparing these two, it looks like that's a better deal than the 70%. And now we just need to compare that with the other two and see what's going on here. Original price is cut by 1/3. Well, up here we were doing 100% minus 25%. If we do this in fractional form, what's the fractional form of 100%? If you're dealing with thirds, that's kind of like saying, okay, 3/3 is everything. That's 1. That's 100% minus 1/3 leaves us with we're paying 2/3. So we're paying 2/3. But as I started this problem, is you need to get everything in a similar form, because how do you compare 2/3 with 0.7 or 2/3 with 0.6375? You can't do it. So go ahead and in your calculator, just do 2 divided by 3 and get that as a decimal. 0.666 repeating. Okay. And now, for the final one, buy 2 pairs, get the third for free. That's pretty much, if you just translate this sentence into a fraction, buy 2, get the third for free. You're paying for 2 out of 3. So that is pretty much going to be the same thing as pennies, right? 0.666 repeating. Now comparing those, you can just look at this list and see the best deal is paying the 0.6375. All right, and then to answer the question, which store is offering the best price? Well, it's hard to really say what that price is because nowhere here did we say how much the shoes cost. But we can definitely go ahead and say that, which is that line going to, that Kohl's is offering the best price. Okay, and when you do have this on an OGT question, you really want to figure out what it's asking you to do, because all of this information, if it's just saying show your work and you have all of this information over here, then that's fine. If it asks you to explain your answer, or you may need to actually write more out and explain all of this and how you came up with that in words. So do pay attention to the questioning to make sure that you are doing everything it asks you to do.